Which is better, the Moto G Power 5G 2023 or the Moto G Stylus 2023? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with my comparison of the Moto G Power 5G 2023 versus the Moto G Stylus 2023. Now, these are two recently launched budget Motorola devices, and I'm really looking forward to showing you both of them here in this video and showing their similarities and differences. Now, one thing I do want to clarify is, out of these two phones, as the name does suggest, the G Power 5G 2023 is the only phone of the two that is compatible with 5G networks. However, I'm expecting that later on in this year, we'll be seeing an upgraded version of the Moto G Stylus that does have 5G connectivity and also some other various premium features. So just keep that in mind. And in addition to that, I have linked to both of these phones in the video description so you can see the most up-to-date pricing and availability. But at least when it comes to the MSRPs of these devices, with the Moto G Power 5G 2023, this phone is being offered factory unlocked at $299, whereas with the Moto G Stylus 2023, this phone is being offered at $199 factory unlocked. So there is a $100 difference between these two phones, and you'll see as this video goes on why that is. Now, with both of these phones, we're getting very large 6.5-inch displays, so you can see when holding the two phones up side by side, they're nearly the same size. So definitely really large displays with both phones that does make them ideal for content consumption, whether that's watching videos or going on social media or reading ebooks. Both of these phones do have very large canvases, which makes them perfect for that. Now, both phones do feature IPS LCD displays, however, there are quite a few differences. Now, the first difference is the display with the G Power 5G 2023 does get a bit brighter compared to the Moto G Stylus. And then another difference is with the G Power, we're getting a 120Hz refresh rate, so a very fast refresh rate here with the phone, certainly a nice premium feature, whereas the refresh rate with the G Stylus is 90Hz. Now, that is better than your typical 60Hz refresh rate, but still not quite as good as what we're getting with the G Power. And then also with the G Power, we're getting a 1080p display at 405 ppi compared to a 720p display with the G Stylus that has a ppi of 270. Now, beyond that, both phones do feature 20:9 aspect ratio displays, and we do have a similar screen to body ratio with both devices, with 83.6% with the G Power compared to 84.5% with the G Stylus. Now, thankfully, overall, I am happy with both displays on both phones, but without a doubt, the display on the G Power is the better one of the two. Now, beyond that, you can see both phones do have thicker bottom bezels, and then also with both phones, we do have hole punches for the front-facing cameras. Now, the front camera on the G Power is 16 megapixels compared to 8 megapixels with the G Stylus. And definitely check out my dedicated review videos for both of these devices to see the quality of the various cameras that we're getting here. Now, storage configurations might be different if you end up getting these phones from carriers, and the two phones haven't yet been launched on carriers, so I don't really know yet what we're getting, but at least for the factory unlocked models of the phones, with the G Power, we're getting 256 gigabytes of storage compared to 64 gigs of storage with the G Stylus. So certainly quite a bit less storage here with the G Stylus, pretty much a quarter of the storage. So that's quite a big difference considering that these phones are only $100 apart. Now, I'm very impressed though that we are getting so much storage with the G Power, because at 256 gigs, that's a very generous amount. I think for pretty much any smartphone user out there, that will be adequate. So just know that if you are someone who fills up your phone constantly and you find yourself always running out of space, then the G Power probably will get the job done for you. Now, thankfully though, both phones are compatible with microSD card expansion, so you can always add in a microSD card to offload photos and videos, for example. Now, unfortunately, neither of these two phones feature wireless charging, which is a bit disappointing, as wireless charging is a feature that I find myself using quite a bit, but both phones do feature fingerprint sensors. So let's give that a try right now, starting with the G Power 5G. And as you can see, very fast and responsive. Let's try that one more time. And there we go, that works really well. And let's now try out the fingerprint sensor with the G Stylus. So very quick, and we'll try that one more time. Very fast. So that's great that we have that, but in addition to that, both phones do feature face unlock. So I do appreciate that we have multiple methods for getting into these devices. Now, taking a look at the cameras on the back of the two phones, there are some similarities, but also some differences. Now, with the G Power, we have a triple camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera for close-up images. Whereas with the G Stylus, we have a dual camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera and a 2 megapixel macro camera. But keep in mind though that both phones are compatible with portrait mode for both the rear and front cameras, so I'm not really sure why we needed a depth sensing camera with the G Power to get portrait mode, but then with the G Stylus we didn't. Now here's how things look on the camera apps on both phones. This is with the main cameras on both devices. Now one thing to keep in mind though is that even though both of these phones do feature 50 megapixel cameras, 50 megapixel photos is actually not enabled by default. Instead, on both devices, you have to go to the More tab here and access the 50 Ultra Res to take photos in that full megapixel count. Let's take some photos right now and compare them. Starting off there with the G Stylus. Now I'll take the same photo with the G Power, and then we'll pull these up, and you can see the comparison here. So overall, pretty similar quality, but in general, what I've noticed from my testing of both phones is that the G Power does have the better cameras of these two devices. So just know that with either of them, you are getting really decent camera quality, but at the same time, the G Power is better in every way. We also have the macro cameras, so you can get very close up and have things be in really good detail. We can then go to portrait mode to get those nice blurred out backgrounds. We can flip around to the front-facing cameras as well and take portrait selfies. However, something interesting is that we do have a group selfie option with the G Power, whereas we don't get that here with the G Stylus. Also kind of interesting as well is that you can see the camera apps are kind of inverted here in the sense that for some reason the preview is on different sides on both phones and the button to switch from the front and rear camera is also on different sides. So I'm not sure why that is. That's especially interesting considering that both phones are running Android 13, but from a usability perspective, it really makes no difference. And then here's the standard selfie mode. But I'm going to take selfies right now with both devices. So there we go. Took those. We'll pull up the results. And you can see that overall, with the G Power, it just brings in a lot more light and things are a lot crisper and clearer with the front-facing camera at least. But again, like I mentioned, even with the rear camera, I've noticed better quality with the G Power. And that does make sense because this is the more expensive phone of the two. Now the RAM and processors that we're getting here with these phones are different. So with the G Power, we're getting 6 gigabytes of RAM compared to 4 gigs of RAM with the G Stylus. And then with the G Power, we're getting the MediaTek Dimensity 930 processor compared to the MediaTek Helio G85 with the G Stylus. Now, from what I've noticed from my personal usage of these two phones, the G Power is way faster. That's for sure. In fact, with the G Stylus, I've noticed that this phone does get laggy, even doing kind of more simple tasks, such as browsing the web. Whereas with the G Power, this phone has always been very fast. Now, compared to a $1,000 smartphone, neither of these two phones really are any comparison, but at the same time, for what you're spending on them, I do feel like both phones do offer the level of performance that you'd expect for the price. And the benchmark results even further build upon my point here. So I do recommend running this test on your current phone to compare your results to these results, and the app is called Geekbench 6, but you can see with the Moto G Power, I got a single core score of 902 compared to 446 with the G Stylus, and then the multi-core scores are also quite different. So definitely way better performance with the G Power compared to the G Stylus. Now with both phones, we are getting 1080p video recording with both the front and rear cameras, and then also with both devices, we are getting 5,000 mAh internal batteries. Also, both phones are running Android 13 with Motorola's take on Android. Basically, Motorola adds in their own bonus features, which I'm actually a big fan of. I feel like with their strategy, they take what's great about Android, but they make it even better. And then both phones do feature stereo audio, which is very impressive. So you're getting audio out of both the main speaker on the bottom and also the earpiece. But one big thing that I don't like about both of these phones is that neither of them have NFC. Now, if you're not familiar with NFC, that's the technology used for tap and pay to make mobile contactless payments, and that's a feature I use all the time. So if you're someone that currently uses that with Google Pay or Apple Pay, you probably will be very disappointed to find that feature is not present here on either of these two devices. So I really wish we had that. That's something that's especially gotten very popular in the last few years, but unfortunately, we don't. But let's now take a closer look at the hardware of these two phones. Now both devices are made completely of plastic besides the displays, which are glass, but that's okay because Motorola has actually done a nice job giving us a nice premium build with both devices, and I'm a big fan of the materials on the back of both phones. It's this nice kind of frosted finish, and I especially appreciate that the phones don't really pick up any fingerprints. Now, taking a look at the left side of both devices, they both have the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card. Then on the right side, both have volume up, volume down, and also the fingerprint sensors, which doubles as the power button. Then up top here in both phones, we have noise canceling microphones. And then on the bottom, both devices have 3.5mm headphone jacks, microphones, USB-C ports for charging and data transfer, the speakers. But then with the Moto G Stylus, we're getting the Stylus. So that is kind of one of the more signature features of this phone, hence the name of it. But basically the Stylus features a pop out, pop in design. It works really well. I like too that it doesn't really add any thickness to the phone. And even if you don't use the Stylus that often, it's still very useful to have here. Maybe you need to sign a document, for example, or just take some notes or do some drawings. The phone is great for that. You can see earlier I was already doing some doodles here, but from there you can do further drawing or whatever you want to do. So just know that the Stylus that you're getting here with the phone is very responsive, and for what it is, it does work really well. In addition to that, you can of course use the Stylus for general navigation around the phone too, so I just see it as a great thing. And then on the back of the two devices, I already talked about this material here. I'm a big fan of that. Now, I do recommend pairing up both phones with cases though, because plastic does scratch up a lot easier than other materials. But we have the camera module, flash, and then the Motorola logos. So in conclusion, the Moto G Power 5G 2023 is pretty much better in every way compared to the Moto G Stylus 2023. Really, the only benefit with the Stylus is the stylus that's in the phone. So if you really want that feature, then you might want to consider going for this device. Of course, you're also saving $100, which is nice. So certainly some things that you'll have to decide upon if you want to go for either of these two devices. But I hope you enjoyed my comparison of the Motorola Moto G Power 5G 2023 versus the Motorola Moto G Stylus 2023. Definitely let me know if you have any questions, and also let me know what you think of these two phones. Which one do you prefer? Which one do you think is the better value as well? Certainly let me know in the comments. But this is Kevin here. Take care and have a great rest of your day.